So right now, I might sound like a total gringo, but I'm very bullish on Latin America. I spent over a year in Mexico myself, absolutely loved my time there, and I would go even more south towards El Salvador. Basically, it's all cyclical, right? The countries who had it too good for too long are now going down, and the countries who struggled recently are gonna go up and be the whole, cycle of like strong man makes the good time creates weak man create bad times. So you look at countries like Argentina, Venezuela, they went through a total fiat shit show,
Mm.
hyperinflation, everything. They're gonna build back up and they're gonna understand what the socialism brings, what the money printing brings, and they're gonna stand strong against that in the following generations. So some Latin American countries I'm super bullish on, and they do provide a really cool lifestyle that is good for raising a family, is good for being a digital entrepreneur. Like local jobs, not gonna get you far, but if you speak English and you can work on a world international job market, like your dollars will go very far down
Mm.
there. And I'm also keeping my eyes on Balkans, like countries that are near EU but not part of the EU, looking pretty good. Like countries like Serbia, for example. That I would be definitely interested in Serbian passport or something in the area,
Yeah.
Moldova, or even countries that part of the EU but not like a crazy active member like Romania.
All right. It's a beautiful day in Brisbane, and I am very stoked to welcome Katie the Russian to the Why Bitcoin show.
I appreciate it very much. So to be here.
Yes, thanks so much. Katie, as we were chatting just before, I've been watching what you've been doing for the last couple of years, and I certainly went deep down the rabbit hole in terms of the passports. I haven't quite gone as far as, I guess, the Bitcoin rabbit hole, but it's an area that a lot of Bitcoiners talk to me about, and I thought I just must chat to Katie because you've sort of not only do you understand the Bitcoin ethos, because I guess you've got competitors, but I want to speak to someone who gets Bitcoin and Bitcoiners mindset, and then also have a chat about all the different options that are available in today's world. But I wondered if we could just start with this. I heard you talk previously about the fact that less than 4% of people actually choose their jurisdiction. The rest are there just by virtue of the fact they were born there. A lot of people just like kind of live and die in the same country, and they don't ever think about like, is this the best place for me and optimal in terms of like my goals and needs and aspirations? But obviously, you think differently, having come from Russia, and you've drawn a lot of that from the sovereign individual thesis and flag theory. So I was wondering if we can just start at a very high level. What is flag theory and why should people care about it?
Absolutely. So just like you mentioned, most people are dying in the same country they were born in. They never questioned authority. They never realized that they're under what I like to say they're born into a monopoly. There's one government that has monopoly over their life. They are not able to choose another jurisdiction to represent them, choose another jurisdiction to provide state services to them. Only 3% of people actually leave outside of the country they were born in, which is mind blowing because we see so much immigration happening, but maybe we are just in a bubble. Numbers wise, it's 3% worldwide. But people like us who really, Bitcoiners specifically, I believe there's a lot of philosophical alignment between flag theory and Bitcoin, which we should probably dive into later. Basically, we're trying to get the control back to the individual on many levels. And we're doing this with radical ownership of a digital asset that is borderless and jurisdiction free, Bitcoin. And we're doing the same with our lives on the side of, let's say, paperwork and identification, being a state citizen, etc. And my definition of flag theory is a way to limit your dependency on any one particular state by obtaining multiple flags in different jurisdictions. And when we're talking about flags, it can be completely different things. In my like flag theory toolbox, I always mention citizenship, which is the ultimate hedge, the most powerful tool in the toolbox. Then, of course, there is residency, either temporary or permanent. But then you can go way beyond that. Things like a foreign bank account is a flag. a foreign driver license is a flag that can be used in certain scenarios. Trusts, of course. Bitcoin is another ultimate tool in the flag theory because there's this cyberspace money that's, again, jurisdiction free. And in true radical ownership, you are in true radical ownership of the asset. So all these flags should be planted depending on your goals and needs.
Okay, that makes sense. And then if we were just to sort of touch on what the distinction between citizenship and permanent residence is, if you wouldn't mind just covering that for a sec, because I don't think everyone is quite across that.
Yeah, absolutely. So citizenship makes you a citizen of the country, gives you a citizen-born-like rights. It comes with a passport, which is a travel document that is accepted all over the world, that will help you cross different borders, depending on, of course, the visa requirements your passport comes with. And it also allows you to request representation in a foreign country from the embassy or consulate of your citizenship, right? When it comes to residency, it is not a travel document. And that's a very important distinguish that people need to understand. Residency, either it's a permanent or temporary residency, allows you to live in a country full time. Most residences will allow you to work in a country full time, get things like driver license, a bank account, and like mostly you will feel like a citizen when you're inside the country. However, it is not a travel document. It will get you into the country, but you won't be able to cross other borders when it comes to travel. And I think residency is a great tool when you need to escape from somewhere to a very certain country. Like, it's a great bug out home in a way as a plan B. But I always say second passport is much more powerful plan B solution.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think the only thing I'd add, obviously, is maybe the right to vote and whatnot. But otherwise, as you say, it's almost as if, because I've gone down the journey of being a permanent resident or temporary, then a permanent, then a citizen. So I can kind of relate. And, you know, you feel like basically you got all the same rights as everyone else, but not when you're traveling. And certainly wasn't the case for me during those wonderful years of the pandemic. So anyway, all right, moving on there. So I just thought, looking at your website, you're touching on a couple of different things. And I thought these are very useful sort of categories for us to touch on and discuss in a little bit more detail. And so if we were just focusing on whether it's a citizenship or a residency, saying there's a number of these benefits that flow from having a plan B. And these are tax, asset protection, privacy, visa-free travel, and then I guess one has this bigger bucket called the hedge, where it's political instability or lockdowns or economic issues or violence or whatever it might be. So perhaps if you could just touch on some of these particular areas and how a second passport or even just a second residency could actually be valuable in those sort of broad categories.
Yeah. So the benefits will vary depending on what your needs and goals are, right? Because some people are looking for, just like you said, a simple hedge, a plan B option. In this scenario, they won't be able to benefit from a different tax regime. They won't be able to necessarily benefit at the time from visa-free travel, but they will benefit by sleeping better at night because they do have this insurance policy. Now, let's say there's another potential client of mine that comes into play and says, I'm truly optimizing for the best tax regime. I'm done being Australian Canadian. I'm not going to pay 60% of capital gains tax on my Bitcoin. I'm out of here. So what they do is they become a non-tax resident of their current jurisdiction, and they choose a different tax regime. For example, one of the Caribbean islands that offers zero capital gains tax, zero global income tax, and they become a tax resident there. By doing so, they will have to relocate. They will not be able to stay in the original country of jurisdiction where they were part of. They will have to cut ties with their country. But again, they're optimizing for a very specific goal. Now, relocation doesn't have to be simply because you're trying to optimize on taxes. You just want to change your lifestyle. I mean, you know about full-on immigration and relocation. I've done it myself. Being born and raised in Russia, I was looking for different opportunities, different lifestyle. And again, that's another goals and needs. So flag theory has to be a custom tailored solution for every single person. Of course, a lot of Bitcoiners come to me with similar requests, like it's either taxes or a plan B.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of the times. But yeah, we try to understand what's the current, let's say, family picture is like. Is it just a single applicant or is it family of seven? Are they planning to relocate or not? What are the specific goals that they're trying to achieve? What are the potential attack vectors that they're hedging against? Because the attack vectors are very important. What I like to say about flag theory, it is a security model. So when you're figuring out your security model for your Bitcoin holdings, right? You're trying to strategize, okay, if I travel a lot, if I have a family and I want to make sure that the inheritance takes place, like I need a multi-sig with this and that, my wife needs to be part of it. Like you strategize according to your family situation, your plans, your goals, and your lifestyle. Same goes for every security model, no matter what you're trying to achieve. Like a physical security model will again depend on what are the attack vectors and what are your goals and needs. Same goes for flag theory. It is a security model, therefore you need to understand, okay, my biggest threat is, let's say you're living in one of the five I countries, which is Australia is part of, Canada is part of, basically all the big English speaking countries. They share all the information. There's very little privacy, etc. So you understand that your biggest attack vector is a state actor. So your hedge should be clearly on the other side of political spectrum from your current government. They need to be not in bed politically. They need to not share information with each other. You might even want to look into a different religion countries because they're usually like there's a religious layer of protection and they're not going to extradite you just because like a Muslim country won't extradite you to a Christian country, something like this. So you need to understand those attack vectors and customize your flag theory based on that.
Yeah.
For example, just to give you a good perspective on that, like let's say people from countries like South Africa or Russia, when they go for a second passport, they want just a powerful passport for visa-free travel because they're done getting visas to every single country. They're trying to go for a conference for 3 days. Like,
yes.
It's not cool. So they just go for a good passport that will get them to travel. St. Kitts, Antigua, 150 countries visa-free or visa on arrival. However, let's say Australian, Canadian, and American don't have this problem. What they do have is very powerful governments who will get them down if they really want to. So a lot of my American Canadian clients are going for Turkey, which Turkey is currently going through a shit show. There's a hyperinflation. There's always political weird stuff going on between the parties, but it is on the other side of political spectrum, and that's a good hedge. So
yes,
that's just an example of like
that's a great example. Totally. And it's funny you mentioned Turkey because I was there in 2013 and it's the only time I've been tear gassed because well, not directly. There were protests against Erdogan even back then. And I was in the new part of Istanbul and just trying to walk through the mall with all the fancy shops. And then suddenly you just see these people like sprinting and then it's like, my God, what's going on? But to your point, 100%. And that's something I've also thought about is like, there's no point in having an Australian and a Kiwi passport or a Canadian or a UK passport. I mean, these are all the same things. They all kind of move in lockstep. You need someone that's an outlier. And then you've got to go, well, is this actually in alignment with my values? And does it solve my problems? Because there's definitely going to be people that are playing completely different games. But then you've got to kind of go, well, is that actually, I guess, a country or a state that I could actually reasonably use as a plan B? Because there might be plan Bs that are just completely different, but I guess wouldn't fit into your lifestyle at all. I think, yeah, that's a fascinating insight. I know that you're big on the sovereign individual thesis, and it's definitely one of the most important books, I think, for Bitcoin history, just in terms of understanding, I think, where we're going. Perhaps just talk to us a little bit about your interpretation of the sovereign individual, how it fits into your business and your offering, and how you think Bitcoin actually sort of ties in together here.
Yeah, so the part of the sovereign individual book that I mostly talk about around my work is chapter 5. I know it by heart. basically talks about the end of nation states. So, but like I work a lot with citizenship by investment programs, right? And those programs are pure capitalism applied to state services. You basically purchase a passport, you donate into a local government fund, or you purchase real estate. So, what they talk about is that how nations will have to start compete for your capital, for the fruits of your labor, for your knowledge, because like back in the day when the travel was hard, when the travel and change of having a remote work was impossible, they didn't really have to stop you from traveling. You again, they had monopoly over you. You were stuck in the city, state, country, whatever. Right now, COVID was also a catalyst for that. People realize that remote work is there and they can actually choose where to work from without changing the job. So now they are taking the fruits of their labor, their taxes, right? And that's what the governments do like to care about, and their capital elsewhere where they're treated best, where the lifestyle is better, maybe where the quality of life is higher while the price of living is lower. So you start to pick and choose depending on, again, on your goals and needs. And that's where the competition evolves. And just like in every capitalistic environment, there are two driving factors. There is price race to the bottom and quality race to the top. And that will be the first time that the state actors actually have to do better, because as of now, there's no competition. Like we know how it works without free market. So I want this free market to evolve as soon as possible. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I can't shut up about it on social media or in person. That's what I talk a lot about. And yeah, I hope this free market evolves. We start applying this free capitalistic rules towards the kind of services we want from our state provider and the kind of price we agree on to pay to the state provider. They wake up. It's going to be a great wake up call. Again, maybe a lot of it is hopium,
Yeah,
which we Bitcoiners actually have a lot of. And
that's
it's
right.
not a bad thing. We just see the world as a beautiful place and we hope for the better, both on the fiat versus Bitcoin financial world, as well as on this free market between jurisdictions.
Mm.
But I'm very hopeful. I do see the fruits of it already coming through. I see friends of mine moving to a different country and getting to a better lifestyle and being happier and paying less taxes and achieving the life of their family that they want to see. So yeah, that's my kind of
Okay.
hope.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is maybe, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it feels as if like that whole COVID period really accelerated what was an existing trend. So we sort of compressed maybe a decade into a few years, and suddenly everyone was like, "Oh, I don't need to actually drive into the city. I can do everything remotely." Suddenly it became too dangerous, apparently, to go and talk to people. So you could do everything remotely, and then what's so interesting about that book is it was written in sort of the late 90s and spoke about cyber or e-cash or cyber money. And it was like literally predicting Bitcoin before Bitcoin. And yeah, it's really something that I look forward to, because another one of my books that I always recommend people read is Daylight Robbery by Dominic Frisby. And I've spoken about this on the pod before, where, traditionally taxes were, and this goes back to like biblical times, like 10%. And most people can deal with 10% cuts, But if we start talking about some of these giant bureaucracies, what maybe one of your competitors would describe as legacy brand countries, I'd put like Australia, England, New Zealand into that category. They've just become so big and bloated. They never get smaller. That's the funny thing. The taxes don't get less. And so we've gone from sort of 10% to, call it whatever it is, like 50% plus. I mean, in Scandinavia, you're talking even more than that. And so it's sort of like we've become so detached from the fruits of our labor in some parts of the world that it's just natural that over time, if you believe like most Bitcoiners in like various types of cycles, that this is just a cycle. The nation state like is at peak madness right now, and hopefully we're seeing the beginning signs of that unwinding. One thing that Bitcoiners would definitely want me to ask you is, when you look at the future, you see sort of the likes of the World Economic Forum with their plans. You look at the WHO and now trying to kind of impose, they're funded by billionaires and they try to impose some sort of mass, health mandates and all that kind of stuff. How resistant are these outlying jurisdictions, the St. Kitts, the Dominican Republic, if that's one of them, Vanuatu? How resistant are they to those enormous forces? Because my guess would be that they are very much, because they're small, they can be swayed by big chunks of capital from the likes of Mr. Gates and friends.
Yeah, and we actually have a very recent example of Caribbean islands kind of taking the knee under the pressure from EU. So just to give you a recent news, the EU had a meeting and they realized they want to go after those citizenship by investment programs. They want to install a certain numbers that they want to see, like they want the price to go up actually, because they realized that the citizenship, after all this inflation taking place, became a little too affordable. They also want to see a very legit, solid due diligence process, which I'm totally fine with. I understand that. But there is clearly a dependency from those islands onto the EU and other big countries, not purely on the capital side. They barely, as of now, they're barely capital dependent on anybody, but more like visa-free treaties. So right now, again, St. Kitts and Antigua have visa-free treaty with all of the EU, the Schengen area, but they can easily lose that access by pissing off the EU, right? So that's why St. Kitts jump on this train of like, okay, we're raising the price, we're doubling the price basically, which took place at the end of June. We are installing the new due diligence process to make sure that we meet the requirements of EU. That being said, we in Bitcoin always say follow the money, right? They cannot lose the clientele as of now because they depend on two income streams. It's travel and citizenship by investment programs. And once the citizenship by investment programs dries out, they're not going to sustain on the travel income. So they have to be attractive to people like us. And they make sure that the privacy policies in place. They don't disclose the identity of the clients or new applicants for citizenship and all these things. So yes, they are dependent, but again, follow the money. Money always says, or money always tells. I don't know the
yeah,
metaphor.
I don't know what the saying is, but I know where you're going. It basically
Yeah.
you can follow the money and the
Ups,
incentives
yeah.
will drive the outcome because, as you say, like if that's kind of half of their income, they're certainly not going to go, oh, yes, sir, no worries, we'll stop our citizenship by investment. But I guess maybe the point is that they're not immune to the pressures, to external pressure to make it more difficult. And again, shockingly, it's always for our safety. So, they'll go, well, there's a lot of Russian oligarchs and, this sort of thing. So we've got to make sure that you're not doing enough due diligence, Portugal or Vanuatu or whatever it might be. Yeah. Okay. No, that makes perfect sense.
I'm the EU. Like, how at some point, when your girlfriend is starting to piss you off a little too much, you're just going to be like, yo, I'm done. Like, that's what the EU has been doing to the rest of the world. They keep coming out with like weird requests and certain cultural needs that they want to meet. But like the world won't listen to them for much longer. They're not capital efficient anymore. They're no longer the safe, like, environment for everybody. Their businesses don't thrive. They got themselves to the point where they are no longer the powerful union that they used to be. So at some point we're just gonna say sorry, like I'm breaking up with you and I'm no longer listening to your requests.
Yeah, GFY, go fuck yourself. We're not listening to you guys.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't know what you think. I didn't expect to chat about the EU, but let's go down this path. I think that they're going to basically fragment because there's too many different interests and cultures, and you've got like this weird dichotomy between the sort of wealthy northern parts of Europe and then these southern parts that are just basically like economic basket cases in terms of the fact they've got crazy debt to GDP, and you've got like Germany has to keep the whole thing afloat. And when it took on the EU as a currency, it actually wasn't really in its interests. Whereas some, like for Greece, they had the drachma, I think, then it was a great idea in some ways, but not in others. So yeah, what's your thoughts around the EU and like perhaps the next decade?
There's a clearly a very precise hierarchy going on between the EU countries, and there are some who benefit more and some who clearly pulling off the weight. But like some countries at the bottom of this hierarchy are basically the same countries in the Cantillon effect of the world, right? Like just like us at the bottom of the Cantillon effect, just getting whatever we can from the money printer. There are some countries in the EU who are doing the same, and they're not going to be okay with it for much longer. And there's not much incentive for them to stay in this union, neither for protection nor for capital. So I do believe that there's not much longer that they're going to stay the powerful union that they once were.
Yeah. And when you look at various regions around the world, I suppose we can say North America, Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia. I mean, Asia is huge, but you can talk about the whole of Asia, let's say Africa, and then I guess Oceania. You look at Australia, New Zealand. Which areas are you particularly like bullish on in terms of the trajectory it's going, in terms of freedom and sort of free markets? I guess obviously that's friendly towards Bitcoin. That's always pretty critical. And which are the areas that you would say, like, I'm looking at this and there's areas that I'm not happy with in the direction they're going?
So right now, I might sound like a total gringo, but I'm very bullish on Latin America. I spent over a year in Mexico myself, absolutely loved my time there, and I would go even more south towards El Salvador. Basically, it's all cyclical, right? The countries who had it too good for too long are now going down, and the countries who struggled recently are gonna go up and be the whole, cycle of like strong man makes the good time creates weak man create bad times. So you look at countries like Argentina, Venezuela, they went through a total fiat shit show,
Mm.
hyperinflation, everything. They're gonna build back up and they're gonna understand what the socialism brings, what the money printing brings, and they're gonna stand strong against that in the following generations. So some Latin American countries I'm super bullish on, and they do provide a really cool lifestyle that is good for raising a family, is good for being a digital entrepreneur. Like local jobs, not gonna get you far, but if you speak English and you can work on a world international job market, like your dollars will go very far down
Mm.
there. And I'm also keeping my eyes on Balkans, like countries that are near EU but not part of the EU looking pretty good. Like countries like Serbia, for example. That I would be definitely interested in Serbian passport or something in the area,
Yeah.
Moldova, or even countries that part of the EU but not like a crazy active member like Romania.
Interesting. Yeah, it's something I've seen that too, Katie. Like Albania,
Yeah,
Montenegro.
that.
Apparently, these are really, I haven't been to either actually. And apparently they're really wonderful. And I actually had a chat during COVID to a dude in Montenegro about what was happening there, because it doesn't seem that difficult to get in. But yeah, I think that maybe this is just a Bitcoin thing, but I feel as if those two areas that you've just described are the general consensus. I think then the next question that naturally sort of comes is, look, when you're looking at these new places, and let's call them emerging opportunities, what are some of the pitfalls that you would identify for prospective people? What are some of the things that people aren't necessarily always thinking about, or the grass isn't necessarily greener per se?
Yeah. Well, first of all, cultural adaptation is not easy in those places. It might be easier for you and me because we didn't grow up in the US or Australia. But coming from the Western culture and just dropping yourself into Serbia, you're going to be like, holy shit, how do I get along with these people? Same goes for Latin America too, but they're a little more welcoming, I'd say. So that's definitely a big one. I mean, you are moving to a lower world country in a
Mm.
stupid way to say that, but like there are a lot of conveniences that we know of that we we now used to, that you will have to adapt to, that like they're just lacking some conveniences. And again, it doesn't take long. As Bitcoiners, we are really not fragile, and we are willing to adapt, and we're willing to learn and take on a crazy learning curve and just get it done. So I see Bitcoiners immigrate, expatriate, relocate, and have an absolutely good time and no problem. But I also do see some other people with different mentality relocating and having absolutely hard time and wishing they didn't do that. So that's one thing. Then it's always a risk. Will you be able to learn the language? Will you be able to adapt to the country in all kinds of ways? Will you be able to get your kids in a local system and understand how to raise your kids right in a completely different culture, because you don't know the risks? Like you knew how you grew up, and you know what should stay away as a parent. You move to a different country, the risks are completely different. So all those things you need to be aware of. And then there's always risk that you're wrong. And that was not a country of opportunity whatsoever.
Yes.
And those Western world countries are going to stay in like near war peace, but a near war peace is still better than the littlest war. Much like the worst peace is better than the best war.
Yeah.
So you always have to understand that you might be wrong.
Yeah, that is a reality, and it's a funny. I mean, that's a good point in the sense that there's a lot of South Africans who they tend to go across to places like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the US, predominantly those four, and the UK, and a lot end up going back. And it's funny because it's even though they're English speaking, it's a different culture. Like I came here and I'm being told that there's three different forms of rugby. This form called AFL, where it's only played here, is the most popular, and the rest are all crap, and we don't follow it. And so, I mean, that's just the beginning. And like, I like sports, but yeah, it was like, oh wow. And then there's all the different sort of like cultural nuances, not only just the phrases that you hear, but all the little things. Like, for example, in Australia, I'd say for the most part, we have a kind of mentality. It's very different to the US of there's a bit of a collectivist mindset in the sense of, the tall poppy syndrome. Don't stick your head above ground too much. We're all equal, mates, kind of thing. Whereas in the US, it's like rah, rah, self-promotion. I'm a free, sovereign individual. I'm here to pursue the best quality of life that I can. And it's pretty different here, whereas people be very quick to cut you down if that happens. So, and I think the same's in the UK. So yeah, what you're saying makes absolute sense. Like a lot of South Africans have gone overseas and had, I guess, an experience to say this isn't worth it. I've just found from my perspective that your attitude drives a lot of it. And it's obviously helpful that we speak English. I think had I gone to the likes of Serbia, it might have been a lot more challenging. But, now that we're talking a little bit about Australia, Katie, and this is something that, I spoke to a couple of people before, said, oh, I'm going to be chatting to Katie. And a big chunk of my audience is actually in Australia. And Australians, they've had it really good for a long time, as you described. It is the land of economic opportunity. It's if you're prepared to work hard, you can make it. It's not just white collar people that are making a good sum of money. It's I mean, even the sort of blue collar jobs are just pulling in shitloads. I was shocked to see how much people in mining and all sorts of other sectors are making. So in that sense, it's pretty egalitarian, and there's plenty of opportunity, but people feel directionally it's going the wrong way. Like we're seeing a little bit of socialism creep in. Leftist politics is becoming more, predominant. Identity politics, which is an import or an export from South Africa that seems to have taken hold everywhere. So they care mostly about a plan B. That's what they care about, because they've got a passport that can enable them to go wherever the hell they want, pretty much from a visa-free travel perspective. If you were just talking to an average Australian, and I know that it's, I guess everyone's got their personal circumstances, but let's assume somebody's just a Bitcoiner and they're going, hey, I want to just figure out what is a good plan B for me as an Australian. Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. So I had a huge influx of Australian clients during COVID when they realized that they don't have the freedom they thought they always had. And Australia, I mean, you're geographically already detached from the rest of the world, so you don't have to take this into consideration. But many Australians would just go for Caribbean passport because it is, again, pure capitalism, everything done remotely. The requirements are pretty low. All you have to do is donate money and you're good to go. And that's the fastest route. Now, those Australians who are willing to relocate are usually interested either in Latin America again or in Texas or Florida, which is, I think that would be a pretty easy move for Australian Bitcoiner to move to Texas or Florida. The immigration processes are in place. There are a lot of immigration opportunities from Australia to the US. It wouldn't be too hard. And that's another thing that they're looking at. They want to have their guns and they want to be in the Bitcoin capital of the world. That's about it.
Yeah, totally. And what's so cool about the US, and I've always been a huge fan, and like it's easy for people to shit all over the US, and when you've especially got a guy running the show who seems to be half asleep, and you just see a lot of infighting and a ton of division, and everyone talks about the dollar going to zero, but look, it's by far the most in demand currency on earth. So I love the fact that it's so multicultural and there's so many different types of lifestyles. Like, do you want to go and live with the wokesters? Go to California. Or go and have a city life in New York. Or do you want to have like a big family and you want to go and live like in a more affordable region? Then there's tons of places in the Midwest. I just love what the US offers, and I think people often aren't thinking, Katie, in terms of like, you don't actually need to make the leap in terms of, oh, I've got to go live in El Salvador. As you say, like a shift across to a place like a Texas or a Florida that embodies what I would believe as the true values of freedom that the US was kind of founded on, that would represent in many ways a great move in the right direction. And so that could be a good viable plan B, because I don't think there's going to be tons of people queuing to go and sign up to go and live in a country where they don't speak the language, especially if you've got a young family. So I think that's actually it's really a good point. I suppose, given what's also happening, Katie, with wars, and I mean, whether it's in the Ukraine, whether it's stuff happening now in Gaza, like, do you see there being any sort of major shifts that will occur as a result, in terms of, I guess, the ability for people to move freely, or the rules relating to citizenship, or anything in that regard? Like, do you see ongoing wars potentially as having an impact on your business and what you do?
Yeah, so every geopolitical crisis definitely brings an influx of new clients simply because people have this wake up call, right? If I look at my last 5 years of business, the biggest influx for US election, when people realize like, oh shit, we're gonna have this guy sleeping on TV for next 4 hours, for next 4 years. That was a big one. COVID, of course, was a big wake up call. And what's happening in the world right now, I mean, it is disturbing. We are having more and more geopolitical crises happening, taking place in different parts of the world. And you might be able to try and disassociate and say, hey, it's not near me. But it does bring some fear mongering towards you. And like, you can't help but thinking, okay, how far it is from me? Are my kids next? But also, I sure hope that normal civilians have this wake up call of realizing that civilians in Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, and Israel did not choose them. They did not choose to be part of this world. They got pulled into this absolutely toxic relationship of politicians and their games. And now they have to be part of it without consenting to that. And that's what civilians all over the world should realize, that they're not too far from it, because there is the crazy politician in their country who does want the same happen in your region. You don't have much to say, honestly. So I mean, every crisis brings new awake people, and I hope people realize that, hey, it is sad. I'm emotional about it, of course, by being Russian and
Yeah.
being pulled into this conflict in so many ways, even though I've been to Russia for 2 weeks in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
But online I've been pulled into this whole pick a side bullshit many times.
Totally. And I mean, I think as Bitcoiners would say, like, the ability for governments to wage endless wars would be extremely restrained had there actually been some sound money, because the public would never agree to it. Nobody's going to say, like, if the US said, oh, by the way, we can't print money, but we've got gold, and it's running out. So, but could we possibly just create these war bonds? But don't worry, we're the good guys. We're just going to go into Afghanistan and Iraq, and we'll hop over to Ukraine and we'll give them $75 billion. Meanwhile, there's people in the streets overdosing on fentanyl, and you've got massive like inequality and civil unrest. But let's focus on what's happening there, and or let's also get involved in Gaza. And it's crazy. And as you say, there's always excuse me, I call them like rebel rousers. There's always like rebel rousers that are almost in a sense promoting conflict and division and violence. There's a guy in South Africa by the name of Julius Malema, a leftist politician who's never really got more than 10 or 15%, but he fills up stadiums and he's able to get them to chant things along the lines of kill the boer, which is kill the farmer. And it's like a struggle song that was sung during apartheid. And people have heard me talk about it before. I was like, okay, this is really like crazy stuff. And so I look at the next decade as being pretty wild, but at the same time, in many ways, you mentioned hopium earlier, Katie. I think I've got a lot of hopium for the future. I want to touch on the hopium aspect in the future in a sec, but first, I wanted to find out if you got in the ears of, like, if you could do like a presentation to the heads of states at the UN, and you're like standing in front of them and saying, like, listen, guys, this is what's happening. What would you actually say? Because if your sovereign individual thesis plays out and they're going to start competing for talent, like, what would your pitch be? And, to these world leaders that are actually, in your view, going the wrong way?
Yeah, I hope I would have the guts to say, you're all dying and you either change your game and get along with our plan, or you've got a long but painful death in front of you. And I, again, partially hopium. I still don't trust politicians anywhere in the world, no matter what they say online. But El Salvador, again, they were forced into this position. They were at the bottom of quintillion effect on US dollar, didn't have access to money printer. So they realized they were already on this death penalty for sure. And they just got along with our game, realized that, okay, maybe we can try to do things differently. And yeah, I would just tell them, well, you're done. You're done.
Totally. Yeah, it's I think because of politicians and I tend to agree with you, there's no real good ones. They're all much of the same, self-interested, and really they play on 4-year political cycles. They don't care about you or the future or anything like that. That's just the nature of these things. And then people go, oh, well, he's a dictator. And you go, well, Hitler got in via democracy. So, we also have to think about all those things. So, like, yeah, I in some ways, I do agree. It's inevitable, the demise, I guess, in terms of the nation state in its current form. I'd love to see them starting to treat us more as customers and not as cattle that they can milk, as the sovereign individual thesis says. Now, I thought that the other thing I was going to touch on now is, like, looking forward. You spoke a little bit about hopium and all that. We spoke earlier before we got recording that you're expecting your second child. Obviously, yeah, and I said, oh yeah, me too. I'm planning something. And I'm thinking, I'm optimistic. For a lot of people, they look forward into the future, and it's not necessarily so. Like, what are you? What is your kind of outlook? Let's say over the next 5 to 10 years, and then 10 years beyond. Like, positive, negative, where you stand.
I'm incredibly bullish on the world, on my life, on my family's life. Just like, I would say to all those world nations, you're done. I would love to tell to all the Bitcoiners down there, just understand that they're done. And all this effort that everybody spends on, like, trying to get their guy into the White House, trying to pick a side and promote their site, just put the same effort into prioritizing your family instead of your candidate, your loved one instead of your party. And if you put the same effort and amount of time into your loved ones, like, they will prosper, like, you will build a beautiful life. Just associate with the state. That's the best I can advise, honestly, because 5 years ago, I went deep down this anarchist rabbit hole where I got super angry for like a couple years. I was just incredibly angry on the state.
Hmm.
I had a strong feeling of hate towards that. I wanted to scream about it on every corner, how bad
Hmm.
of a guys they are. And then I had my family. I had my first child, and now I don't give a shit. And this is an absolutely beautiful feeling when you realize that your neighbor, your next door neighbor, has higher influence on your life than the state actor, than the guy in a White House, and the guy on the TV. And when you start building this local life, building your beautiful tribe with whom you're aligned philosophically, aligned on what's the best money are, aligned on how you want to raise your children together, the life becomes extremely beautiful. Many people on Twitter would tell me, well, Katie, you live in a woke place, Austin, Texas. And I don't see any wokeness here because I'm in an absolutely beautiful bubble of Bitcoiners. We are all getting pregnant together, home birthing our children, having huge plans on how we're gonna raise them on like our principles. And we are in great health. We're all in absolutely beautiful relationship with our loving husbands. We've got our sisterhood going. So I'm highly bullish on my life and the life of the people who surround me. So yeah,
I
that's
love
that's
it.
my
That is wonderful. I absolutely love that because, what you're really saying there, Katie, is basically, like along the lines of Jordan Peterson's clean your own room, take care of your own affairs, stop trying to fix the world, fix yourself, focus on your personal life, your family, get your priorities in order. And if you start making sense of the world, like your little world that you can create in your family, it makes life so much better. I just like what you were saying, just like resonates so much because prior to COVID, I became almost like a US political expert. And I was just like following the news and like, listening to Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin. And then I'm listening to these guys. I'm like, fuck these guys. And oh God, it's all going to hell. And, and then eventually you go like, this is negative stuff. There's no good guys here. They both like, they rely on the other to be able to create content that gets you all incited and you get upset and you're angry. And I don't like being angry. And so, I think perhaps I will say this to the Aussies that are listening, when we look at some of the stuff that's happening in Australia and we go, oh, COVID was a mare. And, there's politicians that are trying to divide us, most recently with this thing called The Voice, all these types of things. I think what I've done, and I find myself so happy and knowing all of that. And yes, I know there's fuckery. Yes, I know there's silly behaviors, but I surround myself with people who share my values. I love where I live. I love my neighborhood. It's a peaceful, quiet neighborhood with lovely, kind people. We don't agree politically and stuff, but who cares? We're like, it's a family oriented, sweet, peaceful place. And my people are Bitcoiners, and that's who I engage with. And they give me all the energy I need. Like, if I was surrounded by just normies talking nonsense constantly, I'd struggle. But you found your tribe. And in my tribe here in Australia as a migrant is Bitcoiners. And so that's what I would say. I mean, would you say anything different to like a lot of Aussies are so negative? I mean, I'm not saying talk yourself out of business, but basically like what would you say to an Australian who thinks, oh, it's all going to shit and, because they're just looking at what's happening. I mean, is there a degree to which you, as someone who's come from Russia, me as a South African would say, hey, take into account there's a lot of worse places you could be probably?
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. You know the phrase grass is greener on the other side.
Yes.
I tend to believe that grass is always greener on my backyard because I make it green. And you can make your grass green at any place of the world. I see still a lot of happy people in Russia right now, in people in Ukraine, people in South Africa. I actually have employees from all three countries, so I'm exposed to spending time with them. Um, Also to Aussies out there, go learn how to sail. You know, if shit hits the fan, you guys got access to water. You can always escape under the beautiful white sails, get on a boat and go elsewhere, or don't go nowhere. It's a beautiful way of spending your time. And you will always be able to get the fuck out if you have to. So learn how to sail.
Okay, fair enough. And Katie, lastly, before we go, I wanted to touch on a couple things in terms of just the countries that you work with, because I know that you've limited it in terms of the types of countries that you work with at Plan B Passport. So perhaps just tell us a little bit about that, and then just talk through at a pretty high level, if somebody were to kind of work with you, what that would actually involve. Like, what's the process?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I want to say that we offer free consultancy at planbpassport.com. And yes, we are limited to the countries that we provide services for, but just due to my own immigration experiences, due to me living and breathing this topic, I know about a lot of other countries that I won't be able to provide you a service for, but I will still be able to consult you on. And I always like to talk to Bitcoiners and help Bitcoiners. So just let's jump on a call and strategize together what your actual goals and needs are and what potential jurisdiction can offer those to you. We currently work with all the Caribbean CBI programs. We work with Turkey, Citizenship by Real Estate Investment Program. We also constantly looking for other great jurisdiction and great programs, including not just citizenship by investment, but other options like we're looking on descent. I can always like give you a little consultancy on either you have some roots in a different country or something like that. Yeah. We also know a lot about citizenship by residency through financial solvency program, which is very common in Latin America. Basically, all you have to do is prove that you have certain income or certain savings, and they will welcome you because, again, follow the capital. They want you to come with your money and live in their country and spend money there. So we are very familiar with a lot of immigration opportunities in Latin America. They won't get you to the passport right away, but you will get residency pretty quickly. Yeah, so that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
the way we work with the client, just from A to Z, you come in, you tell us your goals and needs. We strategize together. I ask you a lot of questions on this free consultancy call, and then we decide what the game plan is. After that, we provide you with a custom tailored checklist of the paperwork that you need to give us, while we will fill up all the government forms for you. If we have to, we'll request some additional documents from your government, such as like police records, et cetera, et cetera. And then we submit your application on your behalf to the government and facilitate all the communication with the local authority, like citizenship by investment unit or immigration unit. And then like hold your hand all the way until you get the passport or residency.
Okay, super. And, having actually gone through a immigration or myself, I can say, look, if anyone's thinking about it, just there's some things in life you just pay for. And to be honest, like legal advice is one, tax advice is another. I'd say immigration advice. My parents were looking at various options for New Zealand because I got family there, and they're obviously South African, and just looking at the investment options. And they did it all themselves. And would you believe it? But they bumped their heads against the wall like 1,000 times, and it's hell. So I paid for it. And if anyone's thinking about it, I would suggest you pay for it and you talk to somebody like Katie, because at least you can understand the lay of the land, get, sort of understand what your options are. And, there might be, I suppose when I say there's options that range from really accessible to really difficult. And obviously the more difficult ones are the ones that come with a sort of high cost barrier, but there's others that are like low cost. And what I'd also say is like, get your plan in place now. Like this is when the time to plan is, not when there's the crisis. I think that the next decade is about optionality. You want to say, look, get your ducks in a row right now. And because I think having a second passport or an residency or just an option will give you that degree of comfort that if we had another scenario where out of the blue there's a monkeypox or something or other, and you saying I'm done, then you got a plan. It's too late once it's actually happened. So I want to leave on that note personally. Katie, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated listening to your stories and your valuable advice. I love the work you're doing. I think it's like I'm just so bullish on optionality when it comes to passports, and like you can probably tell I'm like very passionate about it as much as maybe Bitcoin. So Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I enjoyed our talk very much. Say hi to all the Aussies Bitcoiners. I haven't met many in my last couple of years because I became a mother, but
Yes.
we used to travel to all the same conferences, and I've heard about your local Australian cool Bitcoin only conference many times.
Lovely.
Maybe one day I'll make it there too.
You have an open invite. So we've got basically two types of conferences. There's the sort of small ones. Well, we could even say three, Katie. We've got the Bitcoin Alive, which is our sort of Bitcoin in Nashville, the big event. So that's in Sydney, and that's like last year was the first one. Or actually earlier this year was the first one, and next year there's another. We have the Bush Bash, which is 3 times a year, and that's in these weird little remote places, and we do presentations, and there's sort of like 50 to 100 people. And then I created a third version, which we've done once, called the Bush Bash, which is Bitcoiners and their families and their pets go to camp. And we're under the night skies camping and talking about Bitcoin. So you can come to any of those. You got open invitation, but I know you probably got your hands full for the next few years with kids, and Australia is not close, but we'd love to welcome you one day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And yeah, Katie, I'll put a link in the show notes to all your work if anyone's keen. All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and that you got some value out of it. Either way, hit me up on Twitter and let me know what you think. My handle is Dale21M. If you've got any suggestions as to people you think I should be talking to or topics I should address too, I would love that sort of feedback. Otherwise, if you want to support the show, there's a couple different ways you can do that. The first is just to share it amongst your friends and family. The more that people hear the message that Bitcoin and crypto are not the same thing, the better. And I want to help people understand that. The second thing you can do is give me a 5-star review on whichever podcast app you're using. Of course, that's only if I deserve it. And last but not least, if you want to stream sats my way via the Fountain app, I'm not going to say no, but it's not expected. Thank you so much for your support thus far. It means the world to me. I appreciate the hell out of you, and the best is yet to come. Much love, friends. I'll see you on the other side.